we are live. This is Christine Line, Christine Jewell now, and Juliet Tang. And thank you guys so much for joining us. Juliet, I'm super excited to be here. We're doing this, we're doing something new-ish for both.
Very new.
I've been called to create this program called Warriors of the Heart Kingdom Talks. Juliet has been speaking up a lot about this topic. We've been chatting behind the scenes about our own journeys. So I'm really happy to be diving into this conversation together on owning our humanness. And this is a conversation for men and women who do want to rise, to be kings and queens, to be co-creating amazing, together, kingdoms together on this earth, but with God at the center. And we have been programmed and taught that we are gods, whether it's in the entrepreneurial space and the performance space and the development space and the spiritual space. And we just kind of want to break that down of like, what is wrong with that? Like, our personal experience, our journey, and why it's so liberating and freeing to just come back to our humanness. So I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, same here, Christine. Thank you so much for inviting me on to join you in this conversation. This is something that I know we've been having conversations, and it's something that we are both feeling very deeply after, I'm just going to say, peeling back a lot of the layers in the last year, especially, and coming into owning more of the truth that, we are really not gods. We're not even creator in the sense that we are the ultimate, like we are responsible for creating the universe, the cosmos, the star, the moon. No matter how many ayahuasca journeys you've been to, and both Christine and I we've received tremendous benefit from working with plant medicine. And it's very easy, especially if you go on a journey, it's very easy to feel like, oh, I'm one with everything in that energetic state. So the truth of the matter is, at least in my own journey, is that I feel everything, or a lot of the things that I did when I was more in the personal, spiritual, and high performance development space, seeing myself as God, is that it actually created a huge gap between me and God. So everything that I believed that was taking me closer to God was actually taking me further from God, because it is impossible to form a relationship with a polarity unless both of us own our polarities. And it's the same with our like masculine and feminine polarities. So there is no relationship unless there's the two of us, versus we've all been taught like we are the one, right? You're the one you've been waiting for. You're the ultimate creator in your universe. You get to manifest whatever it is that you want. In doing so, instead of actually just having that deep, intimate relationship with God as a child, we're kind of like operating from a bit of that inflated ego, like I'm this, I'm that, and edging God out, which is what ego is. We're completely just kicking God out of the picture and assuming the role of the creator. And for me, like it did, I know it's probably the same with you as well. It did create some results. Like we did get results at the time. We felt good. We felt empowered, which is part of the reason why a lot of the people buy into it, because it is a form of empowerment, especially if you're going from a place of like healing some wounds and trauma, feeling disempowered, feeling like you have zero control over your reality, right? So it is a step of empowerment, but ultimately that takes us further from God, because it's impossible to form that genuine relationship with our Father unless we come to Him as a creation and as a daughter.
Yeah, I love that you said that. You said so many like nuggets of gold, and I want to go back to like, I do believe that there's a space of where we are it's like a toddler, that's sort of figuring out, oh wait, I'm not mommy, I'm not daddy, I'm going to go out and start saying, no, this is my way, this is whatever, but what we all know when, you speak to a teenager that thinks they know everything and they're like, I don't need your help, I don't need you, everything's up to me. And that puts an incredible amount of pressure on us, the personal development space. And I know that you and I came from very different backgrounds. You came from an atheist family. I actually had like Christian seeds as a child, so I had faith-based seeds as a child, but we went through a really tough time. in my, teen years and 20s. And so I was just like, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And I started diving into all the personal development stuff hardcore when I was in high school, heading into university, just because my external world was being rocked. And I was like, I'm going to make sure that I'm good. I'm going to make sure that this does not happen to me. And so much of it, is the teaching of the goal setting and the hustle and the drive. Go get it, create your own reality, no pain, no gain. And like that whole hustle. And we all know that's an old school formula of success, and it's broken. That pressure of like, well, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I have to create it.
Yeah.
Means that what if it's not happening fast enough? What if it's not happening in our timing, right? What if we can't snap our fingers? Because if I'm the creator, why can't I snap my fingers? And so it just puts this constant gnawing pressure of constantly being unable or behind or truly and it's this like, again, there's this polarity of like, I have the confidence, I'm getting empowered, and at the same time I'm chronically dissatisfied. So it's just like, what is going on? And I do believe that that's a stage that we all have to go through. I do believe, it's like the child needs to, first of all, figure out, oh, okay, I'm not mommy, I'm not daddy, I'm separate from you. And I have to take my foot in the ground and throw my temper tantrums and try to figure it out all my way. And then eventually it's like the belligerent kid who never wanted to listen comes back and says, okay, mom, okay, dad, like, please, I can't figure it out anymore. We get to the point where logic, reason, goal setting, hustling, doing it our way just doesn't work anymore. And I think that, and I think what has happened for a lot of people, and I believe this happened for me, I can say, once I hit a certain place and I was like, oh, now I'm going to make the quantum leap and start operating from a different realm. A lot of the teachings of you're a God, you are a creator, from the hustle and drive, entrepreneurial, personal development, whatever world, in the spiritual, a lot of the spiritual teaching, it's the same teaching with a different
It's exactly the same.
Because now all of a sudden it's like, oh, you are a god or a goddess, and you can, and I talked a lot about manifesting and all of that, which is
same. We all did.
Which is interesting, because when you actually look up what the word manifest means, it just means to make appear to the eyes what was already there. But we think it's like waving a magic wand and going bing, bing, and so again, it's just like we sort of trade one, playing God for another one, and the pressure is still there. And we're like, what is going on? So it's really, to me, it's been very liberating and relieving to be. I love how God pursues our heart. It's like the masculine heart of God. He wants, he wants you back. He's jealous. He's territorial. He's loving. He's fierce. And he's like, come back to me and let me do this with you. Let's go together. You don't have to be alone on an island. You don't have to try to figure everything out. You don't have to be the source of everything. And it's very liberating, and it's very freeing to go, oh, I can actually rest.
Absolutely. Kind of like
rest for a second.
this burden on your shoulder of needing to make things happen. It was never really ours to begin with. So like I've been really in the space of just like feeling into a lot of the grace and a lot of the humbling, because even though, like we talked about it, even though like I feel I was never really arrogant when I was more like in that space, there is still this type of spiritual arrogance, kind of like it comes with this whole territory of, you know what, like I'm here to make things happen. I'm responsible for it all. And, especially in the work that I used to do, it was like, oh, I get to command this universe. I get to command this energy. We all like, everything is the same: universe, God, creator, quantum field, intelligence, right? It's all the same source. So like, there's that it's very much like a teenager that is rebelling against their parents, because I do remember when I was younger, when I was like 14, 15, I kind of was in the place of like, oh, I got it all figured out. They don't understand me. My parents don't understand me. They need to try to understand me. It's kind of like this very self-centered, wow, going like I'm all this, right? I have all the answers. So I feel like that is part of the step, that is part of the stage that sooner or later we all hit in this journey of empowerment and self-liberation, until until it does lead to burnout, because personally, it also led to a place where I just the other day, I was cleaning out a lot of the old stuff, spiritual stuff from
Yeah.
my house.
Yeah.
And I saw like these like 10, 15 journals where every single morning I had this ritual. It was just like so strict. I would wake up. The first thing that I would do is to make myself think really positive, right? Form
Mm.
the intention, like I'm in charge. I would chant these affirmations, and then I would write. I would journal all of the positive outcomes that I wanted from my life and what I wanted to command from God into these journals. So I found like 15 journals where every morning I'm like, I am so happy and grateful that spirit is bringing this to me. I'm so happy and grateful that I'm seeing, blah blah blah. And I was just looking at them. They were like from a few years ago. And I remember, even though I did get some results, I was so exhausted. It's just so exhausting to the point when you feel like the entire creation, universal creation, the responsibility is on you. And I'm going to say like when 2020 took place, when 2020 happened, and more of the truth started to come out, it was pretty shocking to kind of like face the truth for the first time and then think to yourself, what if I got it wrong? What if I was never
Yeah.
meant to be the creator? What if I am not God? What
Yeah.
if everything that I have ever learned, or 90% of what I have learned, is not the truth? So it starts a really humbling path. But the more it is that I humbled myself and opened my heart to receive and ask God, because I ran out of answers when 2020 hit.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing I did was able to help me navigate what was around me, especially like not the affirmations, not the self empowerment tools, not I'm God. If I'm God, why is all of this happening? Right. So like that was not that it was the start, but that was a really significant step in my journey of like finally coming home.
Yeah.
And the idea of actually forming a relationship with God to me
Yes.
was absolutely foreign, because what the way that I grew up, I was thrown into the supernatural since day one. So I was aware of like demonic attacks, entity attachments, like the unseen. And then I got kind of threw into the spiritual and personal development space since a really young age, since like age 13, when I first started reading about past life regression. So the idea that I can even have a personal relationship with God and have a personal God, the first time that I ever even knew about that was 2020, was last year. And since then, I've been kind of like just easing into the space of, what if instead of being God, I am just a child to God? What if there is this omnipowerful, omnipresent, force in the universe that is greater than anything,
Yeah.
greater than what all of the affirmations that I chanted, greater than all of the positive visualizations that I've done. So going on that journey, it became that, wait a second, I don't need to make anything happen, or I don't need to shoulder that burden of
Yeah.
like orchestrating all of the unseen pieces by sending out certain brain waves and emanating this positive frequency, or raising your vibration, right? That's a huge one, or trying to be God. And that has allowed me to truly develop a relationship with God that I have never experienced in my life. So the word embodiment is really big in a personal development space. This is the first time that I'm even embodying this role of someone who is not God, but
Yeah.
has a personal relationship with God. And there is tremendous grace in it that I don't even think I can describe in words. There's just so much grace. You honestly, the way that I feel is that I feel really taken care of. I feel liberated. I feel like I no longer need to make things happen, but I can just be myself. I don't need to constantly monitor my thoughts, my vibration, constantly try to like get the next step, do the next thing, collect the next master key, activate the next layer, crack the next code, which were all of the things that I used to do. And I can just walk freely as a human being. And I feel like because we're in that space, things actually just happen with so much more ease, and it just happens naturally. So I've been like thinking, is this what the personal and spiritual development space has been trying to teach the whole time, that you get to manifest your reality, right? By doing this and that. Except we can just take out whatever is in the middle and just go straight to God, go straight to the source,
Yeah.
and just receive as a child. Instead of trying to force things, trying to make things happen, we can simply just allow ourselves to be, and come home. This is part of
Yeah.
the homecoming
Yeah.
journey.
Yes. Oh, so much goodness. Yeah. Be led, be led, be led, be the
Led.
child, be the lover.
Yeah.
It's both. There's so much there. And I want to say, like, I don't, for me personally, there's great power in words. There is
Yeah.
incredible power in words. And I still coach and speak, and I'm always being, you know, guided to be even more discerning with my words, to be
Yeah.
more selective, because words do carry power. That's a reality, right? So
Yeah.
as you mentioned, I think a lot of us, whether we're writing affirmations or we're chanting things or we're repeating mantras or whatever it is, rituals, like, I've taught people to create rituals too, but the idea is when you start to worship the ritual, or you require
Yeah.
the ritual in order to access the divine, now what's happening is that has become a false god. And I saw
Yeah.
this as a young child in the Catholic Church. Again, it's like that whole saying, like, if it's not well with your soul, if it doesn't sit well with your soul. I remember going through certain church ceremonies and stuff as a child, and I was like, why is there so many hoops I got to get through in
Yeah.
order to talk to God? Can I just
Right.
not?
The hoops.
Innately, a child just knows, like, why can't I just talk to God? You got to do this, and there's all these hoops.
Yeah.
And then again, it's like in the personal development world, it was the same thing, but turned around.
Yeah.
So I do believe that there is an element of preparing ourselves
Yeah.
to be in conversation with God. For me, that's quiet time. That's my space, making sure that I'm not consuming a bunch of, like, the Bible says, like, guard your mind, guard your heart,
Yeah.
guard your thoughts, and be very intentional about what we speak, because what we speak is a reflection of what's on our heart.
Yeah.
But I love what you said when we talked about, like, the forced positivity that a lot of us have been taught, again, whether it's been through these raise your vibration things, which is basically like, okay, try to be in control of your thoughts and your moods,
Yeah.
right? The reality is then we don't own our grief. We don't allow ourselves to feel the loss or the pain or the hurt or and it doesn't mean we become a hostage to it, right? Like, but I believe that those emotions are there to draw us back into that beautiful, intimate relationship. That's like, I am sad right now. I feel sad. I'm experiencing grief. I just need to be held right now. And it is a beautiful reflection of a partnership between a husband and a wife, or two lovers, where it's like, can I love you and see all of you in all of your sadness, even in the moments where you don't look beautiful, or you screw up or whatever.
Yeah.
You're allowed to be you. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to feel that experience, and I can just be here holding the space for you. And in that space, it's like love transforms, and that's where we feel the depth and the richness and the intimacy that we all crave so badly. But we have all been forced to be like little positivity bunnies, because we want to make God our Santa Claus. It's like he's like the gumball machine. It's like, I want to manifest this, I want to manifest that, and
I command you to give me this.
well, it is. It's kind of like he's not Santa Claus, like it's a joint project here. And I was reading something beautiful that said, like, God does his part. God has a role. We have a role as women and men and humans. And like, our role is to, spend the time to cultivate the relationship. Because like in any great relationship, it's like, this is a relationship and it takes time, intention, and presence. So will I show up? Will I acknowledge? And, or am I just going to show up and be like, I need you to do this for me right now, today. And if I don't get it, I'm going to sit here and, try all these other tactics to manipulate you, and whatever that is, more visualization, or more mantras, or more, whatever it is. It's like, there's a fine line where we get to ask ourselves, am I manipulating this relationship to get what I want? And I think it's a great question to ask ourselves in our physical relationships on earth, because I know for me, I think with all of us, when we look at our most intimate relationships, they're very good indications of how we walk our spiritual walk.
Yeah. Yep.
What are
Absolutely.
your thoughts on that one?
Absolutely. So recently, so I'm gonna say like ever since I've been forming, I've been learning to form an intimate relationship, also a very personal relationship with God. I mean, the love and the intimacy that I'm feeling in my physical relationship, it's through the roof. It's
Yeah,
almost like there is this raw vulnerability and tenderness that wasn't there before. Not that I wasn't honest before, but I also, for me, like the way that I needed to be a certain way
yeah,
in the past in my work, always like I was always like in this like empowered place. I needed to lead, like all of that. I never realized how much that actually negatively impacted my relationship. So, because you're trying to be like this empowered feminine leader, like you believe that you have all of the teachings, and then you're looking at partner and like, why doesn't he get it?
yeah,
Why is he not where I want him to be? So, like again, like that goes back to like there's that bit of spiritual narcissism, kind of
yeah.
like I've got it all figured out, and you need to. I remember like thank God it was many years ago. All I wanted was to force my partner to read one more spiritual book. And when
Oh,
he said no, I was like, wait, you mean to tell me that you don't want to better yourself? You don't want to do your inner work? You don't want to find your deeper purpose, right?
wrong with
So like
you?
yeah, there was that thing. So because I've been like so humbled by my relationship with the Father, I'm now seeing like that is a mirror for me to see how I relate to my outer masculine, like how we relate to our inner masculine. It that just manifests as our external relationship. So before, not that I was manipulating my partner, but there
Not
was
consciously
always
either.
that bit of kind of like I'm here and you're like doing your own thing, and like, okay, fine, so you don't get it, that's fine, but you know what, we're still two separate entities, like there was still like that alienation, I'm gonna say.
Totally, totally.
So these days I am experiencing my best and most intimate relationship, because I feel like coming back home to God has really allowed me to heal a lot of my wounds around my inner masculine, and
Yeah,
also around the Father. I think it's because I was the reason why I wanted to be the creator, and I wanted to be God, and I wanted to shoulder all of the burden of creation, was because I never trusted that there is another anything that can help me, that can support me through my journey. So I needed to do everything on my own. So in that sense, like that personal and spiritual development space makes us be the source, as opposed to having a father as the source. He is the true source. We're never the source. And the moment that we become the source ourselves, that really affects everything. I'm going
yeah,
to say the thing that it affects the most is our personal relationship. But if you're in that space, you can't see it until you move out of it. So for me, I was always like trying to like come from that really empowered space. And when I finally came home to the Father, I realized just how much like that type of wounding that my feminine had with my masculine was preventing me from fully being the woman that
yeah,
I wanted to be
yeah.
in the relationship. And I felt like I was getting off of my spiritual high horse, and I was looking at him like, my goodness, did I really ask you to read those books years ago? Did I even say certain things to you like, oh no, I know how this works, and you're not doing your work? Like, did I really do those things? Versus like I come to you as a partner, and we're just here to co-create something beautiful together. So the way that he is responding to me is also completely different. Like I've noticed that very subtle shift. Whereas before, I didn't fully come from the space of trusting him. And he even said it so many times, why don't you just trust me to handle this? Like we once had a huge fight over I didn't trust him enough to pour a giant pot of soup into a jar. I was like, do it this way. No, no, no. Do it this way because this is the way that I do it. Like, all of these little things I never noticed before, but he would point it out to me like, do you trust me enough to do it? We got
Oh,
to this point that he doesn't even need to ask me anymore. I automatically just trust him, being able to lead, being able to do whatever it is that he's called to do. So, like, in that sense, because I trust enough to relate to my inner king, and I trust enough to be held by the eternal Father presence that's in me, I also trust my man enough to do
yeah.
whatever it is that he's called to do without questioning him or asking him to like change for the sake of my comfort, right? It's just so ridiculous.
It's so good. It's so true. And I say yes, I have, I can say yes, yes, yes to all of that because that was my own journey too. And not being able to trust my physical earthly father, right? Like the body became rigid in this like just closed, hardened, rigid nervous system, locked up response. And it takes time to to restore that, right? But not, it doesn't have to take a lifetime. In a moment it can be restored. And that trusting in the masculine is so key. That the masculine heart of God, the protector, the one that
Oh,
creates structure for our flow. I wrote a post yesterday because trust is the key that unlocks our heart, whether we're in a relationship, in love, or in a partnership, and we can't figure out what is going on. Why does it still not feel intimate? There's no depth, there's no richness. It's like we're in competition instead of co-creation and collaboration. See,
yeah.
really, it's like two bulls in a china closet.
Yeah.
Or when it manifests, it shows up in lots of different ways. In the alpha leaders, you may have two alphas in a relationship, which is,
And
I
that
think,
doesn't work. That just
right,
doesn't.
that was your experience and mine, because I felt like I was competing, having to show up as the masculine,
Yeah,
to
same.
prove my worth, to prove this, because I didn't trust that I would be held, that I would be
Yeah.
supported, that I could be seen for all of me in my, I when I wrote that post yesterday, it was like the divine masculine of the heart of God is like the banks of a river for our flow, our
Oh, yes.
feminine to just, whether it's raging, on a day that it's wild and we are feeling all the feels and the water's like moving and we're like the ocean that day, or whether it's this graceful flow,
Yeah.
it can hold us, right? And it does take, it does take a mature masculine heart
Yeah.
to be able to also, hold that space. And
Yeah.
I believe like this is a beautiful opportunity we have in relationship to start to reflect back to each other,
Yeah.
who we are created to be as man, as a woman, in the eyes of God, when we can't necessarily see it ourselves. As you look in your partner's eyes and you see the man that God created him to be, and you starting to go, okay, I'm going to trust him to show up for me more, as I trust God to handle things behind the scenes that I can't necessarily see or hear, then it's like he starts to remember too who he is, and it goes the other way.
Absolutely.
We can be this reflection for each other that
Yeah.
helps to be the reminder without needing to hit somebody over the head with another book. And I
Oh,
can totally relate
yeah.
to that spiritual virtuosity. And it is, for those people who listen to this live or later, it is very humbling. It is, I think you and I both had many tears over this when we all of a sudden realized, did I really act that way? Because you can't
Yeah.
see it when you're in it. It's just like you're blind to it, and you think you're coming from a good place, like the
Yeah.
intention
You want to
of your,
help.
yeah, the heart. And so that's why I do want to say that, the mind is the mind is easy to deceive. We see people out there right now fighting over everything this past year of 2020, 2021, trying to or have logical discussions, but you can't, because
Yeah.
logically it's so easy to be deceived and tricked and everything else. The
Mhm.
heart, you know, has more power, but also the heart, the well-intended
Yeah.
heart can also be manipulated, so
Yes.
we think, well, I have a good intention. All that matters is that you're full of good intentions, and then it's fine. Just
Yeah.
remember this, go into these rituals or go into these practices. I know your soul's not at rest, but your heart's in the right place, and then it's
Yeah.
like, but there's something in your soul, in your spirit, that is not at rest about it. At
Yeah.
a deep cellular level, that something
Yeah.
is up, and you don't know how to put words on it. You don't know how to put thoughts on it. And this is why I say, the heart is the gateway to the soul. Like trust then starts to unlock the heart. The heart is the gateway to the soul, but there is a battle.
Yeah.
There's a battle in the spiritual realm for your heart, because it's a
Oh,
gateway
yes.
to your soul, and the heart, darkness can play and show up
Yeah.
in lots of ways. That's why I think we need to really, if someone's listening to this and they don't really know where to start or whatever, I think that, I know for me, it was like, I just started asking God to reveal to me, I just started saying, reveal to me what is truth, what is not, show more, show me, give me more discernment. Now, here's the thing that showed up for me, and I believe it did for you too, that my brain did not want to accept. Like, the only thing I heard for the longest time was, okay, then be still. Stop consuming content. Stop reading these. Like, I just need to, I had to almost like come to a standstill in many
Yeah.
ways. It was like, because he was training me in listening to his voice and what it felt like to be immersed with the voice of God, of the Holy Spirit, and in that intimate relationship with Christ in me, through
Yes.
me, filled, it's like he's in me, but I'm not him. It's like we're here
Yes.
together, we're walking alongside, and he's working through me. But it's kind of like, again, you use that analogy of the child, and it's like, my daughter is not me, but many times I see
Right.
myself in her eyes. I see her, I'm in her through her, but she's not me. We're still separate, right? And
Right.
this is it's a much deeper relationship with God and Christ, but
Yeah.
that's, it takes time it takes stillness to really cultivate that. And what I mean by stillness is not filling your room with altars and rituals and all this stuff, checking
Or
in with,
manifestation rituals.
well, checking in with like 20 different things to make sure the
Yeah.
message is clear. Because my personal experience, and I'm curious of yours, a big thing for me that led me back to cut out all these middlemen and go straight to the source, where I said, if it ain't from God, it's a hell
Yeah.
no, like it's a no, was that I started to have a spirit of confusion and
Oh,
needing to,
yes.
and I was like needing to double check. It's kind of like I'd get a message and I was like, that seems mostly good, but let me go over here. And so I need to check in with another practice or another ritual or another coach, you know what I'm saying? Another coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's true no matter if we're talking about business decisions, relationship decisions, spiritual decisions. It's like, if for me, when I got that sense of like, I need a second opinion on this.
Yeah.
It was like, that was a massive red flag for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely got that too. I was what God really wanted me to embody was really just devotion and worship.
Yes.
Like that feminine worship is so, so, so huge. It's and it's something that I think, I'm sure you can relate. Like we devoted and worshiped creations more than the creator in the past. We're like, oh, here's a modality that is the golden gateway to what you've always wanted. Here's your goal, your monthly goal. You've got to achieve it. Right. So like my energy was more dedicated to worshiping creations. But when when like last year hit, I was in that stillness. What I found was that so like God kept on saying to me, like, you've got to come home to me. And in the beginning I was just like, well, no, I am with you. I know all this, right? I've taught this. I know all of that. I know, like, we're all one. It's all energy, everything, you're love, and we're all in everything. Like that is not the truth. So he said, come home to me. And that was when what you mentioned, the masculine heart and the masculine spirit, especially when the Holy Spirit filled me with his presence. This is something I have never experienced in my life. There is no spiritual modality that can replicate the feel once
Yes.
the Holy Spirit is here. And you're like, oh, but I tried that discernment modality. You don't need it. You do not need it. Holy Spirit completely just opens your eyes and opens your ears, and you can automatically just like, oh, this is not true, this is false, right?
No.
But
Yeah.
in order to get there, what God really wants us is just, it wants from us is our love. Like that's what I feel. And we've allowed so many like spiritual gurus and personal development mentors tell us who God is, what he has always wanted from us is our love, is that personal development, personal relationship. He wants to have that intimate connection with us where he can move through us, where he can live through us. And that is something that I missed all this time. So the moment that I felt that trusting, enormous, massive, masculine heart that was just waiting for me to devote myself to him, I was like, oh,
Woo!
of
It's good.
course. And in that, I started seeing where I was not fully receiving my partner's heart. And like there were days in the past where I'm gonna just say, like, for years, every single day when I woke up, my first thing was to go to my rituals. It was that I would get in this positive mindset. I would be liberated. I would be empowered. I would set a personal intention. I would spend an hour locked up in my room doing rituals. Like, God forbid, you're not allowed to enter right now.
God forbid we
Like
have
this is
coffee
oh, yeah,
together.
yeah. No, no, no. Like this is my time. And I started remembering, it was just like through so many tears. I started remembering, my God, like I was being a jerk. I was
Yeah.
being a jerk to the person who loves me so much. And so these days when I wake up, my first thought is literally communion with Christ and with the Father, and then to like talk to my partner, find out how we can co-create our day, how we can spend time together. Like all of those things just completely, they were missing from my life. And at the time, I thought I was doing the right thing because, hey, my heart is in the right place and I'm following my higher purpose, right? But what was missing for me was being one with God in spirit, not being God. But what God has really given us is the spiritual nature so that we can be one with Him, and Him, He can be restored within us in spirit. Like that's just how I feel about it. And versus the way that I used to relate to God was I am God. So the moment that we actually say to Him, I am, you are everything. I'm going to place you above everything else. I'm going to place you above all of your creations. You're here to guard me. You're here to anchor me. You're here to guide me. He shows up everywhere in your
Shows up
life.
everywhere.
Yeah, you just
It's
cannot miss
always
it.
you.
And
It's
then it's
always
it,
you.
it is actually through communion with the Son and with the Father that the Holy Spirit then moves in, and He wants to guide you throughout everything. So like that journey doesn't need to take forever, but I will say like it takes a lot of the pride dropping. if
Yeah.
if we approach God from the place of I've got it all figured out, I know what you're about, I've been using you for money, for things, for success, that is not a personal relationship. But if we approach and like my space, the space that I was in, other than the prayer every single day, like, God, please just reveal to me the truth at whatever cost. I said to Him, I will allow, like, I will just take in whatever it is you say to me that is truth at whatever cost, right? So that type of devotion of just stop being prideful and allowing yourself to come from the space like, maybe I don't know everything, maybe I don't know anything, maybe I'm just here so that you can guide me, so that you can teach me and fill me. That type of humbleness really expedites the process. It's not like another quantum leap, it's not another strategy. This is you truly opening your heart and forming a genuine relationship with your creator that there is no strategy or modality or training that can help you reach. This is a one-on-one relationship. The same as if you enter a sacred, intimate relationship with someone, you're not going to ask someone to give you a strategy. You need to take the time to commune, to say, to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, or
Yeah.
to come to Him and just be humble and say, you know what, teach me what I need to know about how I can get closer to you. Every day, my prayer is, show me where I am still standing in the way of getting closer to you. And that is life changing. It's absolutely miraculous. And like this is the space that I've been in the past few months. And I'm like, there's nothing I have ever experienced, plant medicine included, that is
No.
like,
And I want to talk about that for a
yeah,
second because I think that this is a really important conversation. So for, the people that are listening, and I still believe, like, in your heart, like in your soul, you know, if you've been restless, uneasy, you know, seeking, and you know where your allegiance has been. Maybe it's, you don't want to admit it, but one of the first things I always say is like, where's our allegiance been? Has my allegiance been to making more money? Like, have I been worshiping my bank account? Well, if you want to know, like, look at what you do most of the day, where your thoughts are, you know, what are you thinking about? Where's my allegiance?
Like your priorities.
Right. Yeah. It's like, but that's what we have made our God, whether it's more sex, more money, the right relationship, getting more stuff, more status. It doesn't matter, because we like to pretend that we're God, but really we become slaves. We become slaves to those things. Right. But what you said about, the intimacy of the relationship, I really want to tap into that, because yesterday Mark and I were on the beach and we were actually having this conversation about, you know, the experience that many of us have had through, you know, some plant medicine. I mean, plant medicine has been very beneficial for me in many ways, but you know, and through healing trauma and stuff. But whether it's through that or some other transcendental experience, or maybe even at a conference where, you know, you go and everybody's sort of in this high, right? This high, this blissed out love and light, everything's amazing. Look, and it feels like everybody's high, like literally. That's the feeling. It's an elated, ascended sort of, everything's light and love, but there's no depth. There's no richness. So what happens is, the minute you leave that situation, or the minute you leave that ritual, or the minute you leave that thing, you lose the blissed out feel. It's like, it doesn't stay with you. It's not in you it's always like, to your point, oh, I got to spend hours doing this thing in the morning in order to get there. And then we get pissed off if somebody ruins our vibe or something, right? And then we're like, I'm in the wrong frequency, and we can't hold that state because we're trying to control it all the time. And so what I have found is that becomes very addictive. That chasing that, I'm going to call it a high, blissed out love and light, sort of this ascension teaching that we've had, where I've actually had the experience that when I am filled with the Holy Spirit, when I am in deep communion and devotion and relationship to God, it's like there is such depth. I don't go up, I go in, and I feel all of him and all of me. And it is just like, I am bathed, engulfed in this deep love, deep grace that you just is inexplainable.
It's
and
the eternal spring of life that you're just drinking from. It's
endless.
endless.
Right everywhere. But if you think of it in terms of literally a relationship, that's not an addictive, like, I need to do all of these things to get there. It's literally, like we have been talking about, a deep opening of ourselves up to allow that level of intimacy to come in. And I think it's a beautiful mirror when we look at our relationships of like, are we still chasing these sort of superficial, blissed out, ascending experiences that make us feel great for a moment, or fix something or manifest something for a moment? Because manifestation is real. Okay. Like, it is like, you can call things in, you can put energy, and I've taught manifestation before, but what I realized is, for much of my life, to be honest, I was manifesting because my spirit was in, like, things were being revealed because I was just light about it. I wasn't stressed about it. I was in alignment, but when you start doing forced manifestation, it's a totally different game versus just being like, God, I know you were going to provide. And if it's not this, I know that you have something else coming at the right time. So I truly am in service to you right now. I'm like, my allegiance is to you. But I wanted to really tap into that place of, because there's so much teaching around blissed out love and light, and we have these experiences, and this is why we get entrapped, enslaved in either practices, rituals, whether it's, and this happens in affairs and relationships. It happens in seeking, because whether you're addicted to something that is really destructive physically, like drinking or sex or whatever, porn, or you have the same addiction,
spiritual
addictions to try to get the feels, but it doesn't sustain you.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really good place to start getting curious, to go, like, how can this be? Right? There has to be more depth, because at our core, even in our physical relationship, like with my husband, I want more depth. I want more intimacy. I want the deep love, not the light fluffy, everything is great, as long as everything is great, love.
Yeah.
And then the minute that you're sad or you have a rough day, then it's like, ooh, you don't mess with my vibe,
Yeah, your vibe is getting my vibe,
right?
to wrong
Yeah, like,
places. Like,
oh God,
yeah.
no,
Oh my
it's so
goodness.
like, and we've
Yeah.
done it, and it's humbling to be like, God, I did was so judgmental and
Oh
so
God. Yeah.
disrespectful.
Yeah, it's really painful. When I had those realizations in the past few months, I was like, oh my God, I was such an awful person. How could I be so judgmental? And I thought I was coming from the place of love and compassion. Like you use that as a band-aid for your not so good behavior. So it's oh my goodness. So talking about spiritual addiction. So when you were talking about it, the thing that keeps coming up is if you work with plant medicine, everybody knows this one person who, after one ayahuasca ceremony and had a mystical experience,
I need to
goes
go
from
all the
ceremony
time.
to ceremony every single week, eventually abandons his or her family, life, responsibilities, and completely just like go off the chart. So there's always this story. Everybody knows that. And I used to be a psychedelic integration coach where this was the norm. Like this was the norm where we experience something that feels so good to us, so profound that we're just like, oh, we start to worship the shamans, the plants as God, right? This is another chasing after the creation as opposed to the creator, where all of these things, like I believe a lot of these things are just gateways. Like this is the bridge, but this is not the ultimate destination. Ultimately, for me, when I actually let go of all of the bridges, I was able to be at the destination without any bridge by just saying, God, please, like, show me how I can have a relationship with you. So,
Without the dependency, I think, like,
yeah,
dependency, that's the
dependency, addictions. It's also like I was like the spiritual personal development junkie. Even when you
yeah.
think about the word junkie, like I devoured those books. I needed to attend more conferences. Well, but in the end, I feel like a lot of those things were actually taking me further and further and further from this natural bliss. Being one with God in spirit is a naturally blissful, really blissful place to be where it's something again, I have never experienced this before because 2020 was the year that I truly came into, teachings of the Christ and coming home to the Father. So it feels like there's a cloak over my shoulders
Yes.
the entire time. There is this eternal presence. So it doesn't matter if I'm in a really high vibe place, which naturally these days I am, because all the pressure of me being the creator is off. I'm just happy all day long, but I'm not doing anything to make that happen. Or if I'm in that grieve place where I'm just like, oh my God, I was so judgmental toward my partner. I was like, how could I even have said some of these things? Where I am in that space, and I've been in that space a lot as well, I am held. There is this holding, eternal holding that is consistent, that is just like eternal anchoring. It never goes anywhere. It doesn't matter what state of being you're in. God's presence, the Father is always here. The Father is always guiding you through every single step of your life, whether you are, creating like tons of success or currently you're feeling like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're in that grieving or rage space, right? It is always here. He is always here. So in that, I can rest into that. And the moment that my feminine is resting into that masculine holding, I mean, the manifestation is just instantaneous. Now, I don't necessarily use the word manifesting anymore, only because this, for me personally, I just feel like there's a lot of like stigma attached to it. Like people call it all kinds of things. For me, it's just naturally receiving and being provided for. You have a loving father who has put you on earth and created this beautiful kingdom so that you can thrive. And he is a mighty, just, you know, powerful but also loving Lord. And he just wants his children to serve him, to be humble, to listen to him, to live a righteous life. What else is there? So the other day I was talking to my partner as well about this, and he was just like, and I was like, oh my goodness, for all these years, I can't believe you kept on telling me like how he used to say, oh, here, you're throwing away another 20 grand, another 50 grand, buying another like expensive coaching course, buying another conference. Not that, it was wasted, because I learned a lot. But at the time, he was just like, it seems that you're kind of addicted to all of those things. And I was like, oh no, you don't understand. You're not in this space. We all need to keep doing this inner work so that we can get better. Like I gave him this whole speech, and he said it several times. And every time I would just like throw it back at him, like, you just don't understand because you're not in this space and you haven't really done the work, right? I didn't say it in a mean way, but I said it kind of like, well, babe, like, that's my work. This is me. This is the space I'm in. So like, even looking back at that, I was telling him yesterday, it's actually incredibly simple. All of the results that I have ever wanted to achieve, with all of these loops that I kept on jumping through, I embody all of them here with so much ease, and I'm not trying anything. The only thing that I have, the only ritual that I have, is prayer. I pray every morning and every evening. It's not a ritual. It's just me being home with God, and that's it. Everything that I have tried so hard to manifest, I receive without needing to do anything. So I was like, oh, you were right again, and I couldn't see it at the time. And I never gave him credit, like, for all of the things that, as an outsider, he was able to see, he was able to point out. But because I didn't trust the masculine enough, I would just kind of like rebel against it, versus like these days, I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, all of these things that you have ever said to me, like, thank you, just like,
I
thank
think
you.
that yeah, and what you said is, I mean, it really, we kind of keep circling back to this. It does require us to get to a place of
Yeah.
the humility.
Yeah.
We get to come to a place where honestly, truly, we get to fall to our
Yeah.
knees. Like we get, and I know that for myself, it's like, God, I'm exhausted, like physically, I'm
Yes.
exhausted mentally. I'm tired. You're not going to logically do this. And I'm not going to manipulate energy. Like, yes, there's energy. Yes, there's things, but this is about just fully trusting. And I want to say
Yeah.
that falling to your knees and fully trusting and being a deeply devoted is like, for many years, the way that we've been programmed by the world, let's call it the world, the dark cloak that we all walk through is that I don't bow to anyone.
I know that.
Everybody bows to me, right? Like,
Yeah.
and people have said to me, you're going to, be in devotion to your husband, or you're going to be,
Yeah.
letting him lead you. And I still struggle with this sometimes, to be honest, because that old program kicks in at times, and I have to go, God, no, I have to really lean into the trust right now and slow down and relax and allow myself to be led. Like, it requires us to drop to our knees in humility and trust in the unknown, and that cultivating that, I mean, trust is something we cultivate through
Yes.
practice. And we can be afraid, we can experience fear in the moment of like, because it's the unknown, it's unfamiliar. We can feel the fear for a moment and say, God, I'm scared, but I know you're holding my hand,
Yeah.
so I'm going in anyways. And what's so beautiful, and I talk about this a lot, is just like, we're created for the great mystery of the relationship with God, because God, like any man, again, revealing the man's heart, is like, I want to know, I want to come through for you. I want
Yeah.
to come through, but I need to know that you can't have a plan B, C, D, just in case I don't.
Yes.
Like, it's like, your part is to trust me, to be open, to be positioned that when I feel that you're ready,
Yeah.
because you have been in training, to be humble enough to serve or whatever. And I send this thing you've been asking for into your life, you are positioned to say yes, even when it doesn't make sense, even
Yes.
if you don't know all the steps, and that's our part, I think, is
Yeah.
to be right now. What I'm really feeling for myself is that, because I still am always like, my brain's like, God, I want to serve. I want to be in my mission. I want to do the thing.
I
And
want
God's
to deepen into my purpose and increase my impact.
right. And God's like, soon,
Yeah.
you're getting a lesson in just training right now, more
In
discernment,
humbleness.
more wisdom, more grace, more being led. And it's like, there's still that beautiful tension or polarity that exists in any relationship, that
Yeah.
chemistry basically of like, okay, God, like, I'm going to trust you. And Because right now there's a lot of quiet. I think for both of us right now, we're in this space where there's a lot of stillness, there's a lot of quietness, there's a lot of time to cultivate this depth and intimacy, which is preparation for our next season, whatever that season is. And I think, you know, both of us are kind of in this space where we're being led somewhere else that we don't really exactly have all the pieces to. But for me anyways, it's like I can feel all these floating elements. I can see them, but I don't know how they all fit together yet. And I'm just like being in the space of trusting, relaxing, and yes, I can feel the fear, and yet I don't have to be with the fear. I can be with God. You know, like I didn't say this, I forget where it came from, but you know, we're either a host to the divine, we're either a host to the Holy Spirit, or we're a hostage.
Absolutely.
Something else.
Yeah. So, you know, I was just journaling the other day. The reason why I tried so hard to control and manipulate, and, you know, in turn, I got some results, right? Was because there was no faithfulness. And God, there's like almost no way to be faithful because God himself is faithfulness. Like, that is the Hebrew word, right? Like is faithfulness. So when I have this, when I am rooted in faithfulness, which is rooted in God, I find that I am able to have the same faithfulness in my masculine partner, in my physical partner. Because before, the way that I wanted to tell him what to do, or like I thought I was coming from good intentions, was because I really didn't trust that he could, you know, maybe like he could do this, or like he could do it the way that I wanted him to do it. All of that control comes from lack of faithfulness, which is a lack of relationship with God, because God is nothing but faithfulness. So God is basically saying to you, you might not see what your next 10 steps are. You might not even see your next step at the moment as you're in that stillness. Just trust that I can provide for you. And this is the space that is so miraculously beautiful and so full of grace, because this is when we're just like, okay, I'm done playing God. I'm done playing the creator. Like I come to you with nothing as a blank slate. Fill me up. And the more it is that we can empty ourselves from all of the previous conditioning, preconceived notions, attachments, expectations, the more he then fills us with him, so that we get to approach everything in life with his spirit in us. So for me, like that faithfulness is a game changer in my relationship as well, because, you know, now like I really don't need to micromanage. Like not that I used to micromanage a lot, but there were still times that I was just like, no,
Come on, we
I
did.
want it. Yeah, that's what I wanted. But like, just let the masculine be. He wants us, the masculine heart wants us to trust him. The feminine heart just wants to be in worship of the masculine, and she just wants to receive. This is the role, these are the roles that God has created us to play in this world. So when the feminine is so out of whack with herself that she's trying to be the alpha in a relationship, like things get really muddy. And I like, this is also my experience. When we are disembodied, when women are disembodied and when men are disembodied, it completely impacts our relationship with God, because we need, like you said, we need that chemistry between these two polarities. The man is being the man, the woman's being the woman, God is being God. But the moment that we are trying to play every role, we can no longer form that relationship. So these days with me, it's like, yes, I have a clear relationship with the Father. I have a Jesus as my husband. He is my bridegroom, right? He is my inner masculine. And all of that is manifested outward in my physical relationship with my partner, with my physical partner. And because I get to stay, like I kind of like I get to play the role that God wants me to play, instead of everything that the personal spiritual development space wanted me to play as an empowered woman, liberated woman. I get to actually just experience all of the benefits, which are absolutely beautiful.
They're so good. They're so good. And to be honest, like we always have conversations with women. And I know even in my coaching groups where when I really ask like a woman, what is it that you really desire in your heart? You know, and they really just want to be held. They want to be taken
They
care
want
of.
to be filled.
That's not, they don't want the sugar daddy, but they want, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? And they're always like, but I can do it myself. It's like, there's this thing, like I have to justify that desire that's in my heart. And it's like, you can be held and taken care of. And that doesn't mean that you don't have the capacity to go make money,
Right.
to be wealthy and be prosperous. Yes, to all of that, but it's not a competition. But I
Yeah.
want to go to, I want to go back to this thing in relationship of how we were saying that, because I think it's important. You know, you talked a little bit about plant medicine addiction, that some people are always in that healing journey, or they've had this experience. And now all of a sudden the lie is like, oh, well, you know, this is your new world, leave everyone behind
Oh
and
God,
whatever.
yeah.
Or this, this element of like, where's the compassion and the grace in relationships sometimes, like, because we have these expectations that we have to show up and have it all together and know it all, and we, you know, be at this high vibrational state all the time, positive mindset,
Yeah.
finance, you know, then we don't have a tolerance, and we're trained to not have a tolerance. I mean, how much of the teaching in the personal development world and this in the spiritual world say like, don't tolerate anything less than, so
Cut them
there's,
off.
right, yeah. And so then there's, and I say that a lot, like if it's a hell, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And yes, and there's also like, there's an opportunity there where, what happened to the compassion, what
Yeah.
happened to the grace for each other? There's a, you know, I think that a lot of men, I'm going to speak to men too, that,
Yeah.
you know, want to show up, they want to be provider, they want to be the protector. And yet at the same time, if they feel like they have to be the be all and end all, and they don't have
Yeah.
room to screw up because they're not allowed to be human,
Yeah.
then they'll be judged and lashed and whatever by us. So even as a man, like, all of us got to have a leader that we serve, the King
Yeah.
of Kings, the Lord of Lords, that we bow in allegiance to. And that allows us to have, when we make a mistake, we can own our humanness and say, you know what, I had a human moment where I just was out of step, out of alignment, and I chose the wrong thing, you know,
Yeah.
and I can forget. That's where forgiveness and grace
Yeah.
and passion and mercy and deep unconditional love, like all of those fruits of the Spirit of God, are almost non-existent, really, when you look at it
Yeah.
in a lot of these other teachings that, you know, we see are circulating around. And even though it says, oh, there's all love and oh, forgive, the reality is there's very little tolerance.
Very little. It's
Truly,
absolutely true.
there's very little tolerance and for compassion. And, you know, if someone is going through a tough thing, it's either like, well, that's their karma, or, well, they're just mirroring back to me what's wrong with me. And it's like,
Or
it ain't about you.
yeah,
Like,
or like they're not in charge of their realities when they should be, you know, like they're not taking
and
charge, all of that.
I do think, like, yes, people, you know, I look at my kids and they're often my greatest teachers because they are mirroring back something that I have instilled and implanted. And then there's just times
Yeah.
where like my kids just need their mom to show up and not be their
Yeah.
coach and not be to their, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
that's a huge one. That's a huge one. So like I know like I'm sure we've all shown up as the coach in the relationship and immediately we would get this pushback from our men, right? Kind of like don't start this with me. And like it's so natural sometimes like you don't even notice it. So, oh boy, I've been feeling into the masculine so much. There is tremendous pressure on our men in today's society to be the man that they're born to be, you know, partially because there's so much attack on masculinity from just about every single angle. And when you look at like a lot of the spiritual teachings really do not honor men at all. They do not honor masculinity. Whereas in the personal development and the high performance space, I'm not going to say like it's not honoring man, but I don't think the priority is to honor the masculinity and femininity. There's a lot of like competition, there's a lot of being all you can be, but that is not necessarily helping men cultivating this relationship to be the son of God. Like a
Yeah.
man, to me, a healthy man answers to no one but God, but the Father.
Yes.
He is
Amen,
not here to
sister.
be, he's not here to be manipulated by women's emotions, kind of like I've been diving really into Genesis, where Adam fell. The reason why the first original the falling of the masculine in the Garden of Eden happened when Adam, instead of listening to God and being the son of God and obeying his word, decided to please his wife. So, so that was like, like it's almost like I look at it as a generational curse that is in all of us, right? So there is so much pressure on men, like respecting women's feelings, like in like respecting women's empowerment, liberation. But a lot of those teachings are kind of like there's there are these nice words and pretty words on the surface, but the origin of those teachings, of those movements, are actually rooted in a very dark place, to attack masculinity. So I really have been feeling so much into the wounds in men's hearts. And it's something that, oh boy, it's something that I feel at this point, the priority is for men to cultivate that relationship with God so
Yeah.
that they can receive God's teachings directly as to what it means to be that man who can take a stand for the truth, who respects women and his wife, but is not manipulated
It's
by everyone
unwavering. It's
around him.
unwavering in his
Right,
conviction,
unwavering. That
right?
is part of my
Unwavering
masculine trait.
conviction. Mhm.
Absolutely. And our world is so in desperate need of men who are just the sons of God right now. So much. And as women, this is something that we absolutely play a huge part in. We're not just going to be like, "Oh, honey, just do your own thing. I'm going to do my personal development. You can do your own thing." And maybe once in a while, if I see that you're not doing well enough, I'm going to step in and try to tell you what to do. Like that is a big no-no.
Oh,
For women to truly embody our femininity is about really respecting our men, and like like helping them create that space where they feel they are trusted, where we can place our trust in them, have that type of intimate communication. But especially it's about respecting them for who they are, respecting their masculinity.
seeing the God,
So
like through them, God working through them, the
yeah,
God in
yeah,
them. And I think we have a beautiful gift to be able to help point them back in that direction without coaching them there, but by
no,
the
no
way that
coach.
we're showing up with our energy, with our
Yeah,
spirit, with our just, words, with because that's
with
what
our worship.
with our with the feminine body. And I think and like I'm right there with you, is that these, I think you and I really have a heart right now for the
Yeah,
heart of a man, the heart, because it's the heart of God that wants to
yeah.
come back and create structure again,
Yes.
so that there's roots to the family, so that there's deep roots and structure for people to flourish.
Yeah.
Without structure, we don't flourish, and as a
Yeah.
woman to fully bloom and feel alive and allow her beauty to be unveiled and to be like for the queen inside to be revealed. It's very difficult for that beauty, and it's impossible for that beauty, that essence, that creativity, that inspired flow, that intuitive, we are very intuitive. We're
Yep.
like, really, that's the wisdom that Proverbs talks about. She's
Yep.
always, she's related to as a woman in the feminine,
Yep.
But in order for that to bloom,
There
the
needs to be the
masculine
structure,
needs to
the
be a
masculine.
structure. So I think, when we are, I know when you and I are having this conversation, it's not because men are better than women. It's because it's sort of like the order of building, it's
Yeah.
like you create the structure so that then you can have the flow, and the feminine body is like the
Yeah.
creative vessel. That's why we give birth, like we bring more life to the party, right? Like the feminine
Absolutely.
essence is what brings the lightness, the joy, the flow, the creativity, the muse, and that's our original design in the garden. It's
That
like,
is the
oh,
design.
that is the design of the
Yeah,
garden.
that's the reason why, and I've answered this question to a lot of women. I've always like heard a lot of women saying to me, "Oh, it's all great that you're talking about masculine, but what about the feminine?" But the original design is such that God spoke, his voice, like he spoke things into being, right? He spoke this voice into being. The feminine is like the nothingness, the womb, the emptiness.
That's
So
beautiful.
when that masculine provides that beautiful structure, the feminine then thrives. And the reason why a lot of the women feel that we're being left out in this conversation it's because there is this wounding that we hold around the masculine, where we feel like we need to compete with him in order to get what is ours, versus if we truly are just being so embodied in our beingness, once we can peel back all of the layers of the hurt, the betrayal, the needing to compete, needing to be the man, underneath all of that is all of the feminine beauty, creativity, essence, softness, flow. But without the masculine, without that structure, without that container, she is spilling all over the
I feel like
place.
she's lost. She's like
Right, she
water oozing
has no
everywhere.
anchor. And this is something that I also felt in my earlier years. I was very much in like that spiritual space, right? So there is no exalted masculine in that spiritual space. I always felt like I had all of this feminine creativity, but there was zero anchor. And that anchor didn't come in until when I started this journey of healing my relationship with my inner masculine, healing that realizing that I could actually have that internal anchor rooted in my relationship with my inner king. And at the same time, having the father having my back. That's the feeling. He's got my back. So when that masculine is in place, I don't need to do, actually don't do any feminine embodiment work. All of that natural beauty and essence and flow just
Comes
come out
out.
naturally.
It oozes out of us. And I
They
think
just
that,
come out.
yeah, it's the safety. It's the
Yeah,
safety.
it's that safety thing.
When I'm safe, I can relax, and then all of me is able to bloom. It's like,
Yeah, that's the expression and safety.
and it is so gorgeous. And yeah, it's beautiful. Such a good thing. I wanted to give, thinking about what you were just saying with the anchor, without that safety, without that structure of the masculine within, of God within, and also, the masculine in the physical world, the way we show
Yeah.
up, is you get a tired woman. She is physically
Oh
exhausted
my
because
God. I
water,
mean,
that creative flow is spilling out all over the place, and we're trying to create in our families, and we're trying to create over here, and we're
yeah,
trying to create, and we're in like creation overdrive, but nothing is really inspired creation. It's
yeah,
all forced creation. It's like you're trying to pop out babies, and we all know that that doesn't work. So
yeah.
we end up overwhelmed and exhausted.
Like
And so
burned out, basically. Y'all have crash
that,
after crash. I mean, I was in that space for years trying to be the masculine because I wanted to compete with my inner masculine to take on the role of the alpha. And that, I mean, that really didn't serve me well. Health issues, relationship issues, all kinds of issues. So it's so much easier to just be what God has designed you to be instead of trying to be what the world is telling you to be.
and that's where I kind of want to, as we think about maybe wrapping up, but I want to give,
Mhm.
if people are thinking of, okay, so now what? I have all these affirmations and I have all these things,
Yeah.
obviously, I think for both of us, the scripture, the word is always the most life-giving. And
Yes.
but if you're going to, one of the things, like, I do speak out loud, I do write every
Yeah.
day, journal prompts and let the spirit speak through me. But if you're not sure where to start, a really powerful thing that I have been speaking out, and by the way, everything that we share here, I always say, yes, heart check it, gut
Mhm.
check it, but check it with your spirit and say,
Yep.
like, does this resonate with me? But one of the things I speak out loud every morning is, every day I am remembering more and more of the woman God has created me to be. Every day
Yes.
I'm remembering more and more of the grace that flows in me and through me, of the beauty that is in me and through me. Every day I'm remembering more and more. And when I do that, and then I say, God, reveal to me
Yeah.
another layer, right?
Yes.
And allow me to experience more of you in me and through me. So these words, I think, I wanted to tap into these words specifically, because when we say I'm remembering and I'm allowing and I'm inviting and reveal to me, it's like you can tell we're having there's a conversation, there's a
Yes.
communication where I'm coming to you, recognizing and asking, but not from like a give me this,
Or with
demanding.
expectations and
Yeah,
attachment.
it's
Yeah.
like I am coming and I'm remembering, I'm seeing myself through your eyes, and also
Yeah.
please show me, where
Yeah.
else is this revealed to me. Lately, I was actually going through a period where I was all of a sudden felt like a lot of dissatisfaction was coming in, and I was like, what is going on with this dissatisfaction that I'm feeling? Like
Yeah.
I should be so grateful. And I just said, God, every day I'm remembering more and more of the grace, more and more around your divine timing, but reveal to me what's getting in the way of me, fully
Yes.
enjoying these experiences. Like, where is my joy being robbed? Reveal to me what is showing up in my life that is robbing my joy. And it's so beautiful because now we're in a conversation.
Yes.
We're in a discussion. So I just wanted to, maybe you could share some of your things too, because
Yeah.
this is about having a conversation.
A
Like,
relationship.
I'm a human, like I
Yeah.
am here as your daughter. I'm here as your beloved. And I'm in a human body as a mother. I'm in a human body as a sister, as a wife, as a friend. And I'm here to have a human experience. Like, I'm a spiritual being, but I'm here to have this, like, this is where when I talk about, as men and women, we're rising together to,
Yeah.
yes, be kings and queens, which is our original design, but we're co-creating together with
Yeah.
God at the center. So it's like, we get to own the fact that we are on Earth. We're not in Galactica.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is, we're not ascending anywhere right now. Like, yes, we can have a spiritual experience, but we're in these bodies. We have missions here on this planet. So how do we want this to go? It's like
Yeah.
trying to
This
escape.
is this is tremendous. Tremendous. So um when I started being called to go home by God, I went through a period that I was examining each piece of spiritual, whether it was a practice or a ritual or a teaching in my life. And I was praying to God, God, give me the eyes and ears for me to see whether this is something that is allowing me to come closer to you or further from you. And as a result, I'm going to say months later, I have zero practice left, which is all good because I don't need any. So like slowly it was all being revealed to me. And another prayer that I use every day is, show me where I am not fully receiving you, right? Fully receiving that
Am I
masculine.
getting in the
Yeah. And
way?
then that could come up later on as like, oh, my partner's telling me something, or like he's not happy with the way that I'm showing up in a certain situation, or like that. It always shows up. And the key is, the biggest difference for me is that, yes, it is about having a relationship where I'm not just kind of like, hey, tell me how I can get there. Tell me what I can do to get more things or whatever, right? It's more like, please show me the way. Please reveal to me what's in store in that. And if we're in that space of stillness, if we are walking with God, the answers just come on their own. The insights come their own. 100% of the times when you ask, 100% of the times that you receive in faith, in faithfulness. So the moment I receive something, to honor the relationship, the moment we receive something is the moment that we need to implement. Instead of just like, I just want to collect another piece of information. I find like that's pretty big when it comes to like, we tend to receive a lot of guidance from God, but we don't necessarily execute because there is the spirit of confusion. There's the spirit of doubt. And we're just like, let me just double check. Let me go like find another source, right? In doing so, we're actually, again, outsourcing our power versus being sourced from within. So I find the more it is that I ask for guidance, the more it is that I come in with that humbleness, the more it is that he gives me an assignment or some type of advice that I follow, the more intimate our relationship becomes because we are cultivating this trust together.
That's so
Same
true.
thing, same thing with my inner masculine, Jesus Christ. We are forming a relationship together. It's not just about what I want. It's not just about, and you're going to find that working with God and working, with Christ, if that's the path that you're on, is very, very different from working with, let's say, spiritual guides, ascended masters, who are like more like archetypes, where you ask for something and then you're basically like manipulating and asking them to give you things. Versus this is a real conversation. This is a real relationship. They actually really do honor your boundaries. They're not going to force themselves onto you. You need to come to them and ask This is just the design. So the more it is that I do these things, and again, all of that is affecting my physical relationship as well, and also my relationships with my parents, with my family, with my friends, right? Because we start to, like you said, we start to become more God led. And I feel like that energy also then unconsciously impact those that are nearest to us, so that they start to ease into the same space of wanting to do more good, wanting to please you more, wanting to devote more to you, and wanting to just like show up more and be more of their original essence for you. Like that's something that I'm finding
Yeah, it's like you change the
extremely,
atmosphere.
yeah, there's so much of that. The more it is that I worship and devote to my partner, the more it is that I see him devoting to me and worshiping me. So all of that comes from our original, our first relationship with God. Without that, there is no, like, there's no like that role model. This is like the role model that we're all having, you know? So like just treat it like a real relationship. Don't treat it as like a theoretical one. Treat it as a real relationship. Have conversations. If there's something that you're not clear on, just ask a question. God, I'm not sure how I can have a relationship with you. God, I don't know how I can feel you. Just ask. It will always be revealed.
And I have to say this, there's a couple things, because I love what you said. I love it all. And it's, we get into transactional relationships, like the
Yeah.
relationship, if we're human and we have a relationship with God, it's the same as with our lover. If we're trying to have a transactional relationship, when we
No,
show
it
up,
doesn't
we
work.
give him a honey-do list the first thing of the day. It's like, here, this is the stuff I need you to do. Then, that never goes well, right?
No.
So it's like, again, I think that there's lots of times where I do go to God, no for me. And so if you guys are going through this, whatever part of your walk you're in, is remember, like, relationships are not transactional. We're showing up just because we're in love, we're in devotion, we're in relationship, right? We like, you don't have a transactional relationship with your children, I hope, right? We show up because we love, because we desire to show up, and the experience then unfolds, right? But if we show up with all these expectations, so that's one other thing that you said is like, when we do receive the message, I do believe, write it down. But that's our role then. That's our human call to action. That is like,
Yeah.
God is moving through you.
Yeah.
He's moving you. He's stirring up your soul. Now your action is evidence of your faith. And
Yeah.
so one of the things I wrote a few days ago, when I was meditating and praying to God, of like, what God, what, when, and how. I was asking God, when, God, how, and it's like, that's the brain that wants to know the strategy in every
Yeah.
step. And his response to me was, serve well the season you're in right now. And one step at a time is going to be revealed to you. And when you take action on that one step, that's your preparation for the next. So you don't need to worry about when, you don't need to worry about how. The how will be revealed one
Yeah.
step at a time. And I want to see you put your foot where I tell you to put it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you do that, then that shows to me that you're ready for the next step. You don't need
Yeah.
to know when, you don't need to know how. What you need to know is where to put your foot right now and put it
Yes.
there. And so I think that there's much to be said about that for us.
Yeah.
Go through this, as you're working through this in relationship with yourself, with God, with your partner, with your children. Your call is to be, heeding the call and taking that action into the unknown, because that's what allows God to follow through. That's what allows the divine masculine to
Yes.
show up for you, to lead you, to guide you. That's the whole point of the relationship,
Yeah.
because if you already know when, and you already know how, and you already have all the steps, what the heck do you need that? What do you need
Yeah.
God for? You then are God, right? So this is, I think, coming full circle back to our humanness is,
Yeah.
let me do my human part. Let
Yes.
me allow
Yes.
God to do his divine part, and together we co-create. Like, together we go there,
Yes.
together we build this new business, or this new kingdom, or this new relationship together, because he needs me and I need him. And that's the
Yes.
human design, is we do need each other.
Oh my goodness. I was just going to say, like,
So
we have been created to need God, not needing him as a sugar daddy, not needing him as I'm going to command you to bring me $10,000 tomorrow. Not that type of needing, but the Father created us so that we as children need him. So if we take him out of the equation, we're actually not living our original design. And that is like, this is when we start to suffer and have all kinds of problems and experience burnout and all of that. So like, why not just be what we were intended to be by God?
oh,
And the
I love
thing
it.
with, allowing God to tell us where to put our foot, it's exactly that. Like all of us, like on the outside we may not be able to tell, but on the inside we all know when an action is divinely inspired versus we're trying to make something happen because there's a part of us that is scared that, oh my God, I'm not going to hit my next monthly income, I'm going to do this, I'm going to, right there is a huge difference between these two types of actions. Where we are guided to go, I believe, like not just individually but also collectively, is to be so in tune with God's guidance, that we are literally doing exactly where and what he tells us to go and what to do, like without making an extra step. And the way that he works is that he will never give you the entire plan. That is not God. He will show you, he will just light enough. He will just put enough light that's going to light your next step. He's going to illuminate that, and then you get to walk that. But as you're walking that, you will be revealed the next step and the next step and the next step. And this is what it means to walk in faith. This is just like being a child of God. Instead of kind of like trying to figure out the how, the what, the where, that is still coming from the human aspect that is trying to control because of lack of faith. So always come back to faith.
I love it. And I think that is a great place to sort of end, because, is the whole purpose of us doing this conversation was to remember our
Yeah.
original design, to come back to like, yes, we are human.
Yes, we're human.
Congratulations. Yes, we can
And it's a
remember that.
beautiful thing.
And it's a beautiful thing. And how liberating is it that as humans, we don't need to know it all. We don't have to figure
Yeah.
it all out. We don't have to carry the burden of it. We don't have to create it all, but we get to walk with, and we only need to take that one step at a time. Like, to me, this is really amazing, refreshing news. And again, this is not new news. So for those of you who maybe have been in your walk with God for many years, just like any relationship, it can get stale if we don't keep going deeper and keep, like peeling away more layers. We can get
Yeah.
to a point in any relationship where we're like, it's good enough. So I invite all of us, because if we're not at ease and we're not feeling that safety in our body, and we're restless about how and when, and
Mm.
we're finding ourselves in these competitions in a relationship, or rigidness, a man who's burnt out, feeling like he's not trusted, a woman who's exhausted, I just invite you guys to come back to some of these things that we spoke about, of where am I trying to play God? Where am
Yes.
I, taking on the role of God instead of the role of the woman he made me to be, or the man he made me to be, and
Yes.
cultivating this relationship, and I think that is a beautiful starting point
Yeah.
to just have that conversation in relationship. It's kind of like walking through the door with a relationship that got stale and saying, babe, I'm sorry. I just realized I've been ignoring you. I've been competing with
I've been
you,
trying to tell you what to do.
trying to tell you what to do. I know you've been telling me this, but I got my own backup plans just in case you don't pan out.
Just in case.
So, right. But I'm rededicated to the relationship, and I
Yeah.
want to know what we can do here to get close again, to get intimate again.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is, and we can practice these conversations with our children, with our,
With our partners, with anyone.
yeah, and that's where I think that we bring God into the human experience. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you sit in meditation, you sit in prayer with him, but at the end of the day, God wants to work in your
Yes.
relationship with your husband, with your children, with your staff, whatever. That's where God shows up.
Yes, spirituality does not exist outside of all of the areas of our lives. It's not this independent thing. I go off to Peru and, abandon my family. That is not being spiritual. It is living in this moment and
Yeah.
relating to like all of our loved ones and the people in our lives.
Yeah, I love it. So good. All right. Any final thoughts as we wrap up? By the way, if you guys have questions and you're watching this on any of the platforms, feel free to post. I know we're on Facebook Live right now. You guys can post comments below. One of us might pop back in and answer. But final thought as you wrap up, I'm going to ask you a question actually. So we've talked a lot about different places to start, but where would you say is the first step for someone who's like, oh my gosh, I have totally been playing God, and I don't want to
Oh,
anymore. You know,
yeah.
what's
So,
the first step?
I'm just going to share where I started. For women, a good place to start is to heal our relationship with our inner masculine, because
Mhm.
for as long as we are competing with him, we're not letting him in. For
So
men, a lot of it goes back to healing the father wound, just
true.
healing the relationship with the father. And instead of competing to be the father, know what it's like to be the son and devoted to the father. It's a lot of it has been purposefully, done to us so that we do not have that inner compass to come back to that other polarity in us.
So true.
And so like I feel like that's a really significant place to start forming a relationship.
Amen, sister. I agree. I am right there with you. I think that that is a great place to start. And I know
Yeah.
that for myself, that was the exact place that allowed me to step into and to embody and experience a
Yeah.
beautiful, intimate relationship with God, but also with my partner, my husband now.
Yeah.
That it was not achievable, attainable. It just continued
No.
to escape me before. And it wasn't until I got humbled and I went back
Yeah.
to remember my original design and allow him to do the work in me that as a
Yeah.
woman, healing that wound with the masculine.
Yeah, this is life changing.
Yeah,
Like I've worked, I'm sure you have too. I've worked with so many modalities. This is the one that has changed my life forever.
same. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I know we were on here for a
Thank
long time, but
you.
it was great. And Juliet, love the conversation.
Thank you
Thank
so
you all.
much.
Thank you all for joining us. Bye for now.
Bye.